Hello, everyone. Let's see here. Hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you're tuning in from. Happy Monday. Let me see here. Something's going on in front of the building. I just heard something fall. All right, let me see. Oh, something really cool. So, I believe it was last week or the week before. It might have been last week. I showed you this weird plant that I got from Home Depot, and it had this really gorgeous green with orange flower on it. And that's what attracted me to the plant immediately when I first saw it. But it dropped like a day later. So I did save it. It's a very fleshy kind of flower. It's really interesting. But I was super excited because I realized it just gave me 2 new flowers. So I guess it's happy. So here is it. It's still in development, so it hasn't turned yellow with orange on it. It's such a cool shape. It is such a weird flower. And another one here that is developing. Let me see from an angle. Here we go. So it's just developing. I cut off all of those broken pieces. So there were a bunch of pieces that were just like brown and rotting and broken. So I cleared all that up. And so far, so good. It's actually been putting out new growth. So here we go. If I go up down here, here we go. So this is some new growth. You could see that new growth there. This is also some new growth. So far, so good. It seems to really like this spot. So I'm going to leave it actually here. So I'm going to leave it because it's getting the light from the grow light, but it's not super strong. What kind of plant is that? Yes, I am just learning about it. It is Pediolanthus macrocarpus. So Pediolanthus macrocarpus. And what did it say was the nickname, common name? The slipper plant. Yeah. I'd never heard of it or seen it before in my life before picking it up at Home Depot. And I was literally on my way out of Home Depot when the flower initially caught my eye. Let me see if I put the flower on my bookcase, and it was so cool because once the flower died and I put it on my shelf, I wanted to see if it would retain its color. It actually, as it dried, the pollen burst out of it. It looked super cool, but I don't know if if the color is gonna stay in the long term. Here. Like it turned much more of like a deeper red than the light orange that it was. It's hard to see. Here you go. So it goes from like green to like this yellow with an orange tip right here. It's such a weird shape. And so when it got dry, I took it and I put it onto my bookshelf because it fell. It just fell. It was at the bottom of the pot. But I wanted to see if there was somehow I could preserve it. So I thought, well, let me let it air dry and see how that might look. And sure enough, it opened. It just burst open. So those are all stamen with anthers. So that's all the pollen. And yeah, I don't know much about their reproductive habits as of yet. So I don't know if they're dioecious, if there's a male plant and a female plant. But let me hold on. Pediolanthus macrocarpus. And I'm going to Here we go. Let me put that in the chat. Oh, thank you, Suzanne. Yes, exactly. It's totally saying it's happy. And that's A-okay. Oh, somebody was trying to call me. Sorry about that. Oh wow. Okay. So let me actually show you what I'm seeing. So, uh wow, they can even get more red. It's okay. So this is common, but look at that. Holy moly. Wow, I haven't done much research. I've had such a hectic week. Um, oh my gosh, that is super cool. Yeah, so this it basically looked like, yeah, the flower basically looked like this. Um, when I picked it up. And it had one flower and that was it. And the whole plant looked like it had had a rough time. It was cracked. There was pieces that were loose in the soil, like they weren't even in the soil anymore. That poor plant has been through the ringer. And so when I saw it, I was like, oh, I actually really, this is really neat. I want to bring it home. So I'm glad I did because I cleaned it up. It looks great so far, putting out new growth, and now it's giving me 2 new flowers. So I'm hoping it'll keep going, but because these flowers are super cool. Um, wow. So apparently, I guess that's what the fruit looks like. That is not what I expected the fruit to look like. That is very neat. Very, very cool. If anyone has experience with these, please let me know. What it does say on the label is it does say that they require very little irrigation, so you don't want to water them very often, which is great because I guess it's similar to like the euphorbia in that I can water it every couple weeks, give it a nice soak, and then leave it be. But absolutely gorgeous. So I'm very, very happy that I picked this up. So if anyone happens to um run into one at their local like a Home Depot or Lowe's, and you're into succulents, this is a very cool plant. It very much kind of looks like a Ripsalis or some type of euphorbia. It definitely has that look to it. Also kind of reminds me of like a pickle plant. If you've ever seen a pickle plant. So like for instance, how this one's growing, the pickle plant, the Senecio, there we go. Yeah, has that kind of odd growth pattern. It's super cool. Oh yeah, I forgot this one's also called a pickle plant. The Delosperma. I have not had luck with these. I have tried twice with Delosperma. They're so cool to see. They're very fuzzy. It's a very interesting succulent. But I could not keep it happy in terms of watering needs. So the first time I was not watering it enough. So I tried to do a cutting and save the part of the plant that was okay, that didn't get dehydrated and didn't work. Second time I bought it, I bought a smaller one because I said maybe let me try and see if maybe that's it. It's something that I can, water. And then I think I watered it too much. Uh, so if I find another one, I might try it again. But I was trying. Yeah, I tried the less water. The water was like every 2 weeks. And then that was obviously not enough, that poor thing. And then when I said, okay, well, I should, as soon as I feel that the soil is dry, I should water it, and the whole thing rotted. So I don't know. If anyone has experience with Delosperma, let me know how has it been? Is it maybe humidity? I don't know. I've tried twice with these, but they're very cool plants. They really are very cool. Um, if you really want like an odd uh cascading succulent, and they really are very fuzzy. It's just it's such a cool plant to touch if you like fuzzy plants. Um, I especially love like African violets, anything. What is it? The oh my gosh, I'm trying to remember the name of that. I think it's the teddy bear, Tradescantia. Um, all of those that have like really soft, downy type of leaves and things. I love that. But no, I couldn't keep this one, the Delosperma happy. Unfortunately. Yes, Suzanne says third time is a charm. Yes, let's see. So I don't know. So it's like 2 weeks was too much, and 1 week, so sorry, 2 weeks was too little water, and 1 week was too much. So I don't know. Maybe I'll cut it and maybe try every 10 days. Give it a good soak. Maybe I had it in too strong light too. That's something I should consider. But yeah, I don't know. I will try. Um, Jamie is asking, what is that planty thing in the corner that looks like spaghetti? Is it this? This thing? Let me see if this is it. Is it this one or is it this one that's standing upright? Let me know, Jamie. Is it the if it's this, um, this, let me. Oh, yes. Okay. Yes. Let me stop the share here. Here we go. Yeah, this is Tillandsia usneoides. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But yes, this is what's also called like old man's beard, Spanish moss. So there's a couple plants that are called old man's beard, but that's like a common name that's kind of gotten attached to different species. But Spanish moss is like the bigger common name. And you see these on trees like old oaks, in the South, in like Louisiana. You might see this in Georgia, Florida. And then of course, if you go down into like Central America, you'll actually see, I saw quite a couple of trees with this, but yeah, these are, it's an air plant, so these are air plants, um but they grow, let's like, there we go, they just grow like this in these clusters. And so far it's happy. So far I've been keeping it fine. I think it enjoys the humidity. Right now the humidity is at, oh, it actually dropped. It's at 45% right now. Um, but it's been staying like in the upper 50s. And I've been misting it with spring water. And so far, so good. It's actually looking really nice so far. Um, so I'm hoping I can continue to keep it happy, but it was sold. I'm not really sure what's under here. I don't know if it's a hook or what it is that's actually under here. You cannot even see through this thing. It's so densely packed. So I'm not exactly sure what's on the other end here. Um, but I picked this up for 12 bucks. Wait, yeah, 12 bucks. There we go. 12 bucks at the New York Botanical Garden. And so they were selling these. So yeah, but you can order them. I have ordered this in the past, back in I think 2017 or 2018. It was after my first time in New Orleans, so I think it was 2017. I had ordered some. It did not do well. So it came and it was really silver, and there was like a lot of dead um kind of chunks. It was just not doing well. And I could not, yeah, the parts that were still alive, yeah, no. I don't think it appreciated the shipping, and no, it didn't do well. And I have heard horror stories that sometimes they come with these little mites. Um when they're like they're wild, like they're wild crafted. Is that, I don't know if that's the right term, but they're basically taken from the wild, and sometimes they do have these little gnats or little mites that can bite. So, ooh, yeah, no, 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 no. But thankfully that didn't come with the ones that I had gotten. And then these are grown there. So super cool. Very, very excited. Um, yeah, NYBG. Yeah, they might be able to tell me what's inside exactly. Yeah, Judy, that Spanish moss on Etsy, but the yeah, but the reviews were not good. They don't exactly tell the truth on size. Yeah. I would really recommend, I mean, this isn't the first store I've seen selling Spanish moss. But it was a little bit more expensive. I'm trying to remember what plant shop I saw it in. Maybe it was one in Brooklyn. But it looks like, I mean, it might be something that folks might start to carry a little bit more. So maybe you can always ask your local plant shop. Sometimes some plant shops, they'll do special orders. So to see if that would be a possibility. But I can do a share screen just to show folks what this looks like on trees. It's just so dreamy when you see these on trees. I have a bunch of pictures that I have to dig up from New Orleans, but it just gives it such a cool feel. Um, it just looks amazing, absolutely amazing. And they're not harming the tree in any way. So don't worry about that. They're not hurting the tree. Um, they're just kind of using the tree as a surface to hang out on and grow. So kind of like scaffolding. It's like the tree is its shelf. So it's just hanging out on the tree. And I have actually seen these flower, which is really cool. And I tried to zoom in on my phone when I had seen them, and they were flowering in the wild. So it was when I was last in Louisiana. But it's like this little green flower. There we go. Yes. There we go. It's like super tiny, super tiny. But it looks so cool when you're looking at them up close. So there you go. You can just see how tiny that is. Really, really cool looking. Um, but yeah, I mean, just oh, this is a cool side view there. It's cool because you see all these little fuzzy, it kind of looks like the plant is covered in hairs. So this is actually what is called trichomes, and this is how tillandsia are able to kind of take in water when it rains. Or if we're keeping them when we soak them or spritz them. And so these trichomes are literally, think of it like a little drawbridge. And so the door kind of opens and then it looks really fuzzy like this, right? It's kind of like these looks like little spikes all over. And then when water it kind of touches the plant, there's like a little, kind of like a little curve at the base of that, of like on the side of the stem. And as soon as that kind of little reservoir basically starts to pick up water, the trichome shuts itself. It just automatically kind of traps that water up against the tissue of the plant. Yeah, like a little drawbridge, and it closes right back up. And it just traps in that moisture for the plant to be able to use. And so it has all of these kind of covering its entire you know, body basically. Not so anthropomorphizing there, of course, but just has this like all over, and it just closes it in on itself. But it's a super neat plant. And what I really find really cool about trichomes too is just that the way that the plant creates them, it's like uh it's regulated like cell death. I'm forgetting the exact term. But basically the plant, while it's developing, it then kind of concentrates on killing sections of itself to create these mechanisms. It's really, really cool. Maybe the vocabulary word will pop back in my mind. But right now I can't think of it. Oh, hi Deanna. I just saw your message there. But yeah. And so yes, so Judy's asking a great question. Are they more green or silver gray? So they look more silver gray, especially when they're thirsty, when they're dehydrated, especially also in the light, it gives them this silvery sheen. When they get wet and they're really nice and soaked, they do get a green color, but it's not a deep, deep green. It's still like a silver green kind of look to it. So their default is kind of silver. Yeah, so they kind of have that shade of green like a scindapsus, where it's like that silver green. So that's the color. Oh, yeah, you're very welcome, Jamie. Yeah, it's super cool. So far, it's doing well. So we'll take that win. We'll take that win right there. So far so good. So far so good. All right. I actually wanted to show you guys a couple things in for today's class about scamming. I've seen a lot of this going on, and I figured it would be a great time to kind of revisit that topic. I'm going to be doing a more in-depth one as well about the scams that I'm seeing on social media in terms of trends. So if you've seen any weird things, like I'm trying to kind of collect some information for that, but I wanted to show you real quick this kind of ad that came up on Instagram. That is, it's just it's horrible. Here we go. So I sent it to myself. So if anybody has heard of the planting app, it's, let me see here, planting app. And I really don't think that the app works like this, but these ads are just getting more and more outrageous. So for instance, this, so they're telling you not to cut when you're, let's say, the monstera. They're saying that it has sick roots and that you need to add sugar. Please don't add sugar to your plant. Brian's messaging me, sorry. But they're saying, it's saying that here, your leaves are sick, and so it's telling you to add paprika to your leaves and that they will turn green again. This is not true. Please don't. This is not true. This is, I can't imagine all the people that are getting this or seeing these ads and then thinking that this is how they can help their plant. Do not add sugar to your soil. Just don't. That's a recipe for bacteria, for fungi. You're going to actually kill your roots. And if your leaves are yellow, there are so many reasons why your leaves might be yellow. That does, and it just said sick leaves, add paprika. I was like, no, please, no. So yeah, this ad is circulating. It's completely incorrect. It's just, and I just feel like I just feel really bad because I'm thinking people are seeing this, right? Coming up on their Instagram or maybe TikTok or Facebook, and they're like, wow, that's so helpful. And it's like, no, that is not. I haven't downloaded it, so I don't know. I don't know how this is supposed to claim to work. But I have seen many ads that, for instance, show you they seem to like monstera leaves as examples, but they will take a monstera leaf that looks like that, where it has some crispy edges, and then they will tell you to add something, and then the leaf will turn green again. And again, more misinformation. And it's just that, so I'm like collecting clips and things. There's just a lot of folks that are posting up just a lot of misinformation. Um, and it can just cost, it can cost the life of your plant. um, and so it just makes me so sad when I see those, because I'm like, oh, come on, no, that's just no. Oh no, Gabby says that they see it all the time, and that they say to add coffee, add lemon, etc. No. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Judy. Yeah, no, 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 no. um Yeah, I've seen people even saying to you eat your banana and then you take the banana peel, and it's not the banana water. Banana water does really well for a lot of different types of plants. Like banana water actually works really well for staghorn ferns, for instance. There's some plants that really do benefit from like banana water, where you put the peels in water, you let it sit overnight. So there are some plants that really do like that. Some plants do not appreciate that. I would not use that like on a succulent or anything like that. Or I probably even wouldn't use it on an aroid. But I know staghorn ferns really do like banana water. But I have seen folks telling people to take the banana peels, cut them into chunks, and then mix them into their soil. Don't do that. That's a recipe for fungus and, again, bacteria and pests. That is not going to help your plant. You can compost that, but that's going to take a while to break down. Banana peels actually take a really long time to break down. Sometimes I think up to a year or more um, to actually break down into usable compost. So definitely don't cut these your I almost said pineapple, your banana peels, and add them directly to your soil. It's not going to end well. Yes, Gabby, let me know if you do remember any of the odd ones, because oh my gosh. So just be mindful of that. But I wanted to share with you all basically that there's a lot of scams. And so hold on. So let me share my screen. And so I can show you. Oh, that's awesome. Um, oh, Deanna, so you received some ladybugs that you ordered from Amazon. They arrived well packed and protected, all alive, and only a few had died. I released them on 2 flower bins on my screen porch. The next morning, so many of them had died, but a lot were still on the plants. I guess they were really not effective because there are still some tiny white that fly off the leaves.
Specks.
Oh,
Should be specks. Tiny specks that just fly.
yeah, so that sounds like that might be white flies. Um, I'm concerned why they might have died. I mean, it could be I mean, there are did the packet come with food? So sometimes the pack of the ladybugs, they do come with a little powder that what you do is you mix it up with water, and you can spray the like an area where with your plants. It doesn't affect your plants. But it kind of rehydrates them. It could have been the heat too. During shipping, why you might have lost quite a few.
No, it didn't come with any food per se. It came packaged in this tub with a perforated lid, but it was stuffed with it looked like wood shreddings, which
Oh,
might not
uh-huh.
have been wood, and they were loose in a stocking bag. perforated bag, and I just released the whole bag, put that container in the planter,
Mm-hmm.
and let them do their thing, and I remember reading that they should be released at night, and that's what I did. So I don't know, why the majority of them had died by morning. But still, the ones that were left should have taken care of some of those white flies. And actually, are they white flies, Jocelyn? Because they're so tiny. They're like little specks that fly.
So that's what I'm thinking, is that they might be white flies. So white flies are very tiny. Um,
Okay.
they're like smaller than a fruit fly.
Oh, yeah, and they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're small. They're small.
Okay.
Um, and I'm not sure if they're true flies. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know if they're true flies. Um,
Right.
but they are very, very, very tiny. But yeah, I'm just wondering what happened that, I mean, it could have been the just the overall shipping. Because usually, yeah, no, they are very, very effective. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, that's
I don't know if there was not enough of them. They had 2 packs of 150. So
Mhm.
you would think like, 300 would take care of a couple little planters. So I don't know. I may try them again, maybe from a different source other than the Amazon site, even though they shipped okay. Hmm.
Yeah, I would try to see if maybe a local plant shop might carry them.
Okay.
So you can call ahead and just say, "Hey, do you have to carry ladybugs?"
Ladybugs.
And just to see, because usually if they're having them shipped to the store, they're kind of taking care of them and they're settling in for a few days. So you would definitely know if there's like a massive die off. Um,
Okay.
and then it actually comes out a lot cheaper, because I think with Amazon they do tack on like a, well, I know for here for New York City it was a $15 shipping fee. So it could have been like the heat during transport. um
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. The box even had the shipping box had holes poked in it all on all sides, I guess for airflow. And I don't know if that helped or not, but evidently it was they weren't getting enough of something. Whether it be the heat that was affecting them, or maybe it was an old batch of ladybugs. I
And
don't know.
that's very true. That's very
Okay.
possible. It could have
Oh,
been an
okay.
older batch. Um,
Okay.
I know that when we get the bigger packs, so usually Brian and I get the packs of 1500.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and so we'll release some, and then what we'll do is the rest we'll actually put in the fridge. And they
Mhm.
can, not the freezer, but the
Feel free.
fridge. Um,
Okay.
and they actually kind of slow down. It's like
Yeah.
they're not hibernating, but it's kind of it kind of slows them down. And so then we wait for a couple days, see how it's doing, and then we send out like another wave.
Wow.
It's so we do that. Um
And you've had good luck with them doing,
yes.
okay.
Oh
All
yeah.
right.
With
I definitely will try it
Amelia.
again then, Jocelyn. Yeah, thank
Yeah,
you.
we're actually getting more. We tried this weekend, and the shop that's carrying them, they didn't have any, but they told us that they're getting a new shipment on Wednesday or Thursday. So we're gonna make sure to head over there. Because
Yeah.
we're trying to get a hold. We've been battling thrips, and I hate
Mm.
thrips. I would rather have anything else. Give me spider mites, give me mealy bugs, aphids. I will take it all. I just thrips are just the bane of my existence.
Oh,
Um, and
oh,
yeah, so I've been battling them. I've been battling them. Um,
good luck with that, Jocelyn.
yes. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
but I'll check around locally and see what I can find and try it again.
Yes,
Thank you.
definitely try local. You're welcome. Good luck with that. Yeah, because
Okay.
yeah, they really are very, very helpful. Um, oh, please help. My mother's peace lily is dying. Many of the leaves have died. Please tell me how to care for it so we can bring it back to life. Yes. So with peace lilies, don't panic. So with peace lilies, if the roots are fine, if nothing is wrong with the roots and it's just the top side that's struggling, you can actually cut those back. So cut those dead leaves back. And peace lilies will I've seen peace lilies completely cut to the base, where there's just a couple little stems left, and they've come back. So as long as the roots are healthy, you're good. So in terms of taking care of peace lilies, so they do appreciate wet feet, which means that they don't like to completely dry out. So if you they also don't like really bright, intense light. They will get burned. So you want to either, if you have a very intense light situation, like a western or southern light exposure, you're going to want to either have like a white sheer curtain in front of your window, um, or if you have those kind of like the film that you can put on your windows to kind of diffuse the light a little bit so that it's not really, really strong, if that's your situation. But you want bright indirect light. So a northern exposure is actually really nice, or an eastern exposure where you have it slightly pulled away from the window, and it's getting a nice amount of like this really bright ambient light. They're very happy like that. They don't like kind of straight on direct sun, if it's really, really intense and really hot. And now, depending on where you're located, if you're experiencing summer, it's much more intense, and there is a lot more sunlight. It's longer for longer period of time, so the exposure might cause burns on the plant. So another thing is they really appreciate more humidity. Oh, Maryland. Okay, awesome. So I hope you're not the summer here in New York City has been atrocious so far. But yeah, it's intense. It's intense. I've had to move plants around. It's yeah. Um, but with humidity as well. So you don't want to have them right by a fan. You don't want to have your peace lily right by an AC unit. So this is gonna quickly dry out the plant. That can cause the leaves to get brown and crinkly. They'll dry out and die. You want to keep it where it's kind of in a place where there's no draft or anything. It's just kind of, in this and in a nice humidity. So you want it at least to be like at least 40% humidity where it's located. So that's why the peace lilies do really well in the bathroom. Just make sure you have a window in the bathroom. If you don't have a window in your bathroom, you could get a grow light, but then put it on a lower setting. So you don't want a really strong like full brightness, that might burn your plant as well. But yeah, a little bit more humidity. And they don't like to be moved around a lot. So once you pick the spot that it's going to live, that's where you're going to want to leave it. And again, don't worry if the roots are fine, if there's nothing wrong with the roots, you can totally bring it back. So oh, it's bad there too. Okay. So bring it like farther away from the window, if it's anywhere close to the window, in an area where it's going to have a nice amount of humidity. And then if the pot itself, if it's not in water, so sometimes some peace lilies are sold in water. That's fine. They like that. You just have to kind of watch to see water changes. If the water starts to get murky or brown, that's not a good sign. You want to make it, wants to look clear. If you see green, that's usually algae, and you want to make sure you clean it, scrub that really well, because algae will compete with your plant's roots for oxygen. It steals the oxygen out of the water. So you want it to be nice and clear. If it's in soil, then you're probably going to end up watering it. Now that it's summer, you might find yourself giving it, I would say a bottom water is best if it's actually in a pot. But like no less than once a week at this point. So you're probably gonna start to feel like once it's about like halfway dry, you're gonna want to give it another drink. They don't want to completely dry out. So you might end up having to water it, I guess, in this heat. It might go a little sooner than a week. So it might be maybe 5 or 6 days, depending on how hot it is by you. So, but yeah, but they are very temperamental plants, and it's just because they're very sensitive to change. So they don't like when they're being moved. So sometimes when you bring them home initially, you might lose some leaves. Um, so that's normal. That's normal. But then once they're in the home, if they continue to do really poorly, so usually plants, the acclimation period, so basically like the time for them to get used to your home, is usually about 2 weeks. Um, you really know if they're really settling in after like 4 to 6 weeks, if you're not seeing anything odd and they're looking good, maybe they're pushing out new growth. So it takes a couple weeks for you to know if the plant is doing well where you've placed it in your home. Um, so if it's happening like right away where you just brought it home, it could just be acclimation. It's just kind of sorting itself out. Um, but yeah, I mean, them and like ficus, so like fig trees, fiddle leaf fig, or what is it, the ficus benjamina, the weeping fig. So they're also very temperamental. They don't like to be moved. So it's very common you bring it home and poof, it starts to to drop its leaves. You're like, what's happening? And that's normal. Oh, that's a great question, Deanna. So, what's a good way to increase the humidity in your home if it's air conditioned? Yes. And so basically it can be difficult, right? So you can have a humidifier going while you have your AC going. Um and it would be closer to the plant. So moving the plants like farther away from the AC and having that humidifier just to kind of help to balance a little bit of that loss, because the AC is going to dry out the air. The humidifier will kind of replenish it. So it's not as dry as it might end up being. Um, we because we have so many plants here in the living room, we've been keeping the AC going at like a temperature of like 68 to 70. So it's not as cold as some folks have their ACs, and so I think that that's also helped in not completely losing all of the humidity. Um, but yeah, during summers you might end up, if you have, if the room that you need to have air conditioned has some plants in it, you might want to consider either having a dedicated humidifier in that area, or moving the plants to a room that might, you would keep maybe the windows open so that it gets more humidity. Here in our living room, it's just we both spend the most time in our living room, so that's the space that's getting air conditioned. And in our kitchen, we keep that window slightly open, and a lot of our plants in the kitchen are just enjoying the extra humidity. It's a very big difference when we walk from our living room into the kitchen. As soon as you start to approach the window, it's like, oh, this is hot. It's heavy. The air is heavy. So it's, yeah. So that we're just kind of maneuvering plants around, but we do have our humidifier. I have it full and ready to go. So I hadn't realized that the humidity had dropped to 45. That's the first time I'm seeing it at 45 in a while, in like several weeks. So it's been at like 54, to it's even gotten 61. Recently, I'm trying to remember what happened, Mozart. I don't know if you heard my cat. Um, are you okay? Um, hello. Oh, hello. Okay, here we go. Oh, hi, buddy. Um, it was even in the 80% of humidity. This is Mozart. If you haven't met him yet. Um, You good? You good, buddy? Yeah. Yeah, he's good with the plants. It's only if you have a plant that like if our monstera or any plant that has a slightly crispy edge, that's he starts to mess with it. All right, buddy. You're gonna have to hop down. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. All right. Okay, so let me show you real quick. I wanted to show you just a couple of examples of scams. Because it's summer in a lot of places, but I know it tends to be kind of plant buying season. Um, and unfortunately, there are a lot of scams happening. So let me there we go. I love Canva because I made this with the plants moving and stuff. I highly recommend Canva if you're looking to make presentations. It's absolutely wonderful. But welcome again to another class. And so I just wanted to touch on plant scams, just because, folks, this is a reality. We're seeing it with the misinformation that's being shared on social media, on ads, and also just like tips and tricks. I've seen so many scams on that. So I definitely want to do one that's focused on that specifically, because gosh, it's getting pretty rampant. But I kind of just wanted to share with you because a lot of this information, it's really setting you up to fail. Um, it's, we buy plants because we're interested in them. Maybe we find them really visually appealing, or maybe we're, building up a collection and we want a specific type of plant. We get super excited when we get our plants and we're spending our money on these plants. So it's really unfortunate the way that, it ends up going, because sometimes it's not even just like a scammer, right, that's potentially causing this, but sometimes even the shops, the actual like sellers of the plant, the growers, they're tagging these plants incorrectly. It's kind of like setting you up to fail so that you'll end up having to buy another one. So here's just a little bit of some things to kind of watch out for. So here is one example. So I know a few of you have seen this because we've spoken about these tags, and folks have put in the chat that they've had their this same experience. So where you get a plant and it doesn't have the correct name, but instead it has this thing like beautiful home decor or tropical foliage or something like that, where it's actually not telling you at all what the plant actually is. And so then this also puts you at a disadvantage, right? Because you're not sure, well, what is this plant? What are its needs? It'll say something kind of generic like water this frequently, or this plant needs this amount of light. But sometimes that actually it doesn't match up. So of course they make these tags as like a generic tag to add on certain plants, and one would hope that they would at least put the right lighting requirements with the right plant, but it hasn't always been the case. And so sometimes you get really wrong information, whether it is the amount of light you should be giving your plant or the amount of water you should be giving your plant. And so you end up bringing the plant home, you're following the tag, and unfortunately it's not the correct information. So you end up losing that plant. And then sometimes it's also these misleading categorizations. And so So not only is it the label just wrong, right? But sometimes they put the plants in different areas um, that I guess in the store makes sense. Or even when the growers, right, they're sending them out in trays and then they're being kind of clumped together. But you see a lot of like tropical succulents being mixed with cacti. So you see things like ripsalis, for instance, being and like even during like Easter and Thanksgiving and Christmas, when you see the Christmas cacti, those all those holiday cacti, where they're being mixed in with terrestrial cacti, with cacti that don't need as much water, that need really strong sun, and they're being mixed with these more tropical succulent type either cacti, because there are epiphytic cacti, or other types of succulent like plants, like peperomias, for instance, where they're kind of bunching them together. And so folks might purchase, let's say, a tray of succulents and then thinking like, oh, these are all, they all want really strong light. They kind of make that assumption because it's in that kind of section in the store. And what ends up happening is you end up underwatering your tropical species. So Ripsalis, for instance, as well as like Schlumbergia, which is the Christmas and the Thanksgiving cacti. The Easter cacti was Schlumbergia, but then I believe it got reclassified. I'm trying to remember what the new genus is. They're still related, but it's in like a different genus now. But these plants, they tend to need a little bit more water. So they might end up needing, depending on the size of the plant, it could be once a week, it could be every 2 weeks, maybe even every 3 weeks. But usually that 1 to 2 week kind of need for water is very prevalent in these more like tropical species. With peperomia too, they'll need water sometimes about every 2 weeks or so, depending on the succulent type of peperomia you might get. When they're like the caparatas, which are much more like they kind of look like begonias. They have that kind of that stem, really soft stem. They need water much more often. But the other types of peperomias, like obtusifolias or like the string bean peperomia, these are much more succulent, but you will find them needing water about every 2 weeks or so. So you just end up again, kind of. It's easy to assume because they're all clumped together, and so then this ends up being why a lot of folks end up burning their tropical cacti or underwatering their tropical cacti, or tropical succulent like plants like peperomia, because they end up just being thrown in with cacti. And there is just this, prevailing idea that cacti are like desert plants, right? And so then they end up putting them in this section. It might even have like a picture of a big sun and it might say something to that effect. And then it ends up, folks end up kind of taking care of their plant incorrectly. And this is very common in like Lowe's and in Home Depot, that I always find these tropical species mixed in with these more high sun, less water type of species, all because they're succulent. They kind of fall in that spectrum, just kind of thrown together. They're clumped together. And then sometimes there's information on those labels, as I mentioned, that one might not be appropriate for the plant that you have purchased, but also just outright ridiculous information. I have personally seen tags that say to water your orchid with ice cubes. Please don't do this. I know I've talked about this before when I've talked about orchids, but gosh, I can't say this enough. The people in these nurseries, they are not watering the plants with ice cubes. This is not happening. So you do not want to do this. You risk one causing like like freezer burn. Think of it like that. It's like cold burn on those roots. You're also cause shock because of the temperature. It can cause shock to your plant. And another thing is, uh, let's pretend that that wasn't a factor. Um, and it's supposed to be slow release water, right? Because it's melting, and then it's they're melted in a few minutes, and then your plant has gotten some water, right? It's still not enough water to saturate that plant fully. So what ends up happening is, not only are you physically harming the plant, right? The roots are getting burned, or they're going into shock, but then it's also not enough water in the long run. So it's not enough that you would have gotten from a bottom soak, or from just running the plant, the roots or something, like through the tap. um it, it's what you're giving them is like a couple teaspoons of water, which isn't enough, and so the plant ends up also being dehydrated on top of being burnt and potentially in shock. So there's no good that comes from this. So some folks have gotten lucky where they've done this, and they didn't come into direct contact with the roots. It just went into the wood chips, and they swear by it. But I feel that the margin of error is too is too large for me. So I would just rather not, like, play with fire, but in this case play with ice. So I just would rather not do that. Also, so sometimes the growers, right, they need to be efficient. That's just how it is, right? They are growing these plants as products. And so they have found ways to do it much more efficiently, and to grow them. Sorry, Julia's singing in the background, if you hear my parrot. Um, and so, they will use things like twisty ties, or if you are familiar with like money trees, for instance, Pachira aquatica, they will put these kind of plastic rings or rubber or foam bands at the base. You might also be familiar with certain plants like alocasias, or certain types of aroids, where when you try to do a soil change, you might actually realize that the plant is kind of like in a little sack. It might be like in a little kind of cloth type of sack. So these are like seed germinating. They're like little bundles that the plant then grows in. It makes it really easy for them to repot, right? Because it's all kind of enclosed, so the folks that are working at the nursery, they can just grab it by the stem. And this is the purpose for those bands and things. It keeps everything kind of together, cleaner. It's just for ease. But what ends up happening is that they're repotted into the pots that they will be in when you purchase them. And these things aren't removed. So these twisty ties, these like foam rings, that fibrous type of little like germination baggies, some of them do break down, so you might just see like pieces in your plant. But sometimes I've seen roots grow through them, and they start to get girdled, so the roots kind of get choked out. So I find myself cutting as much as I can of those things. But they're still there, right? So what ends up happening is your plant might start doing poorly. So for instance, especially if it's restricted, it will cause girdling. So this means that basically that whatever is around the plant, it starts to kind of go into it. It starts to kind of cut into it. And what this does is it cuts off those vessels. So that living tissue that's kind of working how like our blood vessels work, it's these vessels that are transporting sugars, others that are transporting water, and the what's called the xylem and the phloem, and it kind of cuts them off. So the plant starts to die. So first the top section will start to die, and then the bottom section will go. So, making sure that if you get a plant, you can remove any of those little twisty ties or anything like that, I really recommend Velcro's plant tape. It's very soft. It's not harmful to the plant. And so if you do need to hold up your plant, there's just better alternatives than using those little metal twisty ties that can really harm that plant and wound it. In terms of the base, so there just are more common plants that have like especially the money trees. That's one to definitely look out for, is to have that, potentially have that ring. And sometimes you might even find some with these netted pots. So I put a picture here, is what they look like. And this means that usually the plants are started off, a lot of plants are started off as cuttings in nurseries. It's just faster than growing them from seed. But they're started off hydroponically. And so they're put into these little netted pots. And so where they can be grown in mass in big kind of like irrigation systems. And then they kind of grow their roots through that, and that's not removed. They're just kind of transplanted into soil like that. But then that can eventually kill your roots because again, they'll get choked out. So it's something you just have to be aware of if you purchase a plant. Just, don't be surprised if you end up seeing something like that. So if your plant is doing poorly and there's nothing that you can identify on the outside, there's no pest, it wasn't burned, you didn't have any recent change of temperature or humidity, and you're like, what's going on? And you go to look at the roots, you know, look for these types of things because this can happen. But what ends up happening is, let's say you never knew, right? It could very easily kill your plant. And when you finally do check, like, why did this plant die? And you're going to throw it out, you end up discovering what's been going on. So this is not necessarily a scam, but rather misinformation. And so with grafted cacti, so a lot of folks get these and they get super excited. I have one. I do like grafted cacti in terms of the look, and I like the science behind it of joining the two species, but you have to go into it knowing. So my last moon cactus looked like this. It was yellow, and I had it for almost 2 years. And so it recently passed away. And so I was like, oh, well, it had a good run. And I got a new one, which is this red one behind me, but it looks just like this. And the base is dragon fruit. And so with these, you just have to understand that this is grafted. So the top part is called a scion, and the bottom part is your rootstock. And so that top part can only survive if the bottom part is doing well. So you want to make sure you're taking care of the bottom part, giving it a nice amount of light, because it needs to produce food for itself as well as for the scion. So there's some extra care involved when you're working with grafted cacti. Also, they don't live a very long time. So depending on the species, sometimes these crested cacti, if they're placed on certain species, they might actually live a little bit longer. But a species like this mix of like the moon cacti, which is I believe is a gymnocalycium, and then on top of like a dragon fruit. What ends up happening is they only live about a year, maybe two. It's not a very, very long lifespan. But it is very cool if you're interested in that kind of thing. But it's just about being aware, right? Just having the consumer be aware that this isn't going to be a very long-lived plant, unfortunately. Now, there are some times where the scion and this is not true of all grafted species. There are plenty of trees and things that are grafted and do perfectly fine. But it is the case when the scion, for like cacti, for instance, where they cannot survive on their own. It's just that they cannot produce their own food no matter what. So if they're like those weird colors like yellow or that bright red and there's no green in them, or if there's a crested cacti like this where it's just completely like white or something like that. This one has a little bit of green, so it might be okay. But if it's like all white or all yellow, these cannot generate their own, like they can't produce via photosynthesis. They can't generate their own sugars. So what ends up happening is, again, they really require something, that rootstock to survive. And if that rootstock dies, that scion is gone. But sometimes the scion might have a lot of green on it, right? It might actually be a viable thing that was just grafted onto another cactus just because. And these can actually survive a lot longer. But just know if it's something like it looks, really crazy color and there's just not enough presence of green, it's not something that's going to be able to survive at length, unfortunately. I want to also touch on nodeless plants. So we see this a lot, this one specifically during Valentine's Day. And so these are the Hoya carrii, really beautiful. You might hear them called sweetheart Hoyas. And so these are really cool. If you get them with a node, they grow into a really cool vine. I have one here, up here, that keeps growing. It's super great. It's a really laid back. It's probably my easiest Hoya. That's my easiest Hoya. Of all the Hoya that I have and I have ever had, that is my easiest Hoya. And they're super awesome. But the problem is if you get them and they don't have a node, you just have this one little leaf that roots. It will root, but again, doesn't have a very long life expectancy. So after about a year or two, it will kind of exhaust itself. It can't survive on its own. It can't generate new growth, and it will start to die. It might start to yellow or rot from the bottom, and then that's it. Now, if you are lucky enough where the person who might have done the cut left a node in there, you might see some growth. And if you do see some growth and there's a little vine growing, or you just start to see like a little nub basically growing, that's a great sign, because then that means that somebody, they left a little bit of node tissue in there for it to continue to generate. Of the time that I have had this plant, which has been, gosh, I think I've had this plant for more 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 years. It's been a while since I've had that plant. I got it during, gosh, yeah, I got it during 2020. So yeah, it's about 3 years then. And that one, since I've had it, I've only had like 3 leaves grow from it. So it's very slow. It's very, very slow. And then the last leaf that it gave me, it actually gave me while I was away. And so when I left, I had seen it starting. And when I came back from vacation, it had a leaf. And so I was like, all right. So when I was getting the leaves before, I would be watching them. It's like when you're waiting for your water to boil. And so I kept watching it, and I felt like it took so long, months, for it to finally develop into a leaf. And then when I'm away for about a month, like 3.5 weeks, it decided to form the entire leaf by the time I got back. So I don't know. It's when you're not looking at them, right? But yeah, these are super cool. But again, just be aware if you buy them or you get them for someone as a gift, that if they don't have a node, then they're not going to grow more than that. But if you have that expectation, if it's more ephemeral, right? It's just like, oh, it's not going to live a very long time. You just wanted to enjoy it. That's totally, totally fine and valid. But yeah, hopefully, if you do get one, you end up getting that node with it. I also wanted to touch on companion planting. So I see this a lot in shops and in big box stores too, especially during the summer. There are these crazy arrangements and they're mixing all these plants together. And I mean, they look beautiful. So for instance, I'm seeing here, there is a parlor palm, there's a Dieffenbachia, a Syngonium, a spider plant, a micans, and a photonia. So that's what I'm just seeing. So there's 6 different species. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm seeing 6 just from this photo. And the problem is they all require different watering habits. So, with the parlor palm and the photonia, that's and maybe even the syngonium, they might have more similar. They're gonna want that is it a photonia? No, sorry, it's a hypoestes. I think that's a hypoestes. But they're gonna want like uh, bright indirect light, and they definitely appreciate more wet feet. They're going to want to get watered a little bit more often. As soon as they feel like they're starting to dry out, they're probably going to want more water. But then plants like the Dieffenbachia and the spider plant, they definitely want to completely dry out before getting watered again. So you don't want to keep them waterlogged or they're going to start to rot on you. And then the micans is kind of in the middle. So micans, it's a very soft, velvety philodendron. It's a vining philodendron, and I find that it's much more thirsty than the non-velvet type philodendron, like a regular green leaf philodendron. They call them the heart leaf philodendron. That likes to dry out between waterings, but micans, it's like as soon as it starts drying out, the leaves will start to kind of coil in on themselves. And then you know that, okay, yeah, I definitely need to give this a really good bottom water, and then they're great. So they just kind of require a little bit, oh, they're kind of in that middle. But just as you can see, just as an example, right? Very different, very different watering needs. And it's not going to end up working in the long run. So while it might look really great right now, um, parts of this arrangement, I mean, is going to start to die back. It just ends up not working. And here's some other examples. These are some really bad examples, right? Well, not in terms of being a bad example, but just a bad arrangement. But here you see one that has a parlor palm as well, and then there is a Dracaena, looks like a Jenny Craig, and then there's I think it's a kangaroo fern. It's some type of fern. Then there is a Hypoestes, and then what looks like an Echeveria. So very different needs. The Dracaena, the Jenny Craig Dracaena is also going to want to completely dry before getting watered again. The fern might actually be the thirstiest out of this section here, and so they're going to need a lot more watering. The Hypoestes and the parlor palm again, they're going to need more often watering, but the Echeveria is going to need less watering. It's definitely going to need a higher light, such a strong light that light would burn all the other plants. And if you instead give it indirect light, what's going to happen to the Echeveria is first, it's going to idiolate, which means it's going to stretch. And so it grows in a really weird, like upward shape. It looks really stretched out. And then it will start to rot. It might rot even before it starts to stretch, especially with all that moss in there. So that moss is going to lock in moisture. And for plants that don't appreciate that, that's a one-way ticket to root rot. So just so that you're aware of that. And then similarly, with this other arrangement, we see cordyline, which is that beautiful burgundy plant with the pink edges. That's cordyline. Next to it, another parlor palm, and then I'm croton next to that. Oh gosh. Then I'm seeing what actually does look like a photonia, and then a kalanchoe, that succulent in the middle with the pink flowers. And then next to that looks like a variegated English ivy. So the croton, the parlor palm, crotons do want to get watered at least once a week, at least, at the very least, but they also do prefer a lot of bright light. Um, this out of all of the plants there, that's probably going to need the strongest light, kind of like that echeveria. So that light situation though would burn all the other plants in this set here. Well, maybe not the cordyline. The cordyline can take a nice amount of direct light. Um, but the parlor palm would definitely burn. And then, with the variegated ivy and the photonia and the parlor palm are going to need water a little bit more often. Ivy also is very prone to the spider mites, and also humidity changes. They can crisp up really quickly. So if it's not being watered enough, but then the kalanchoe, so it is a succulent, but it does appreciate a little bit more water than other terrestrial succulents, but it's not going to need as much water as some of these other plants are going to need, and it's going to end up rotting for you. So while again, these look really pleasant, aesthetically pleasing, you really do have to keep in mind what plants you're trying to put together. And when adding that moss, again, remembering that that's going to lock in moisture. And so if you have a plant in that arrangement that just doesn't work for, it's not going to last. So this might look really nice, maybe even for a couple weeks. And then some plants are going to start to die. So if you pull it away from the sun, then the plants that need higher light are going to be gone first. If you have it in kind of like a medium exposure, certain plants might be too much sun and they'll start to get burned. Or when you're trying to water it, you're going to end up losing the plants that would have rather dried out than been, among other plants. There's also a lot of competition in there. It's just there's a lot going on in there. So not a very good mix. This is not a horrible mix, but it might cause some issues. So like the or ogre ear, the crasulas, and the aeonium, and also the string of pearls, they might want to be watered maybe every 2 to 3 weeks or so. But then the Easter cactus is gonna, depending on how hot it is, it can end up being every week or every 2 weeks. I think the pink one at the bottom is was it Androcampos, something like that. These I actually found that they do want to get watered like about every 10 days to 2 weeks. But then the aloe is what's going to really cause a problem here. So when they're small, aloes can be watered a little bit more often, but as they get larger, they're retaining much more water, much more succulent, the thicker the leaves are. I water my aloes like once a month. And so once a month would not work for these other plants. Would definitely not work for these other plants. So just another one to keep in mind. And also, it looks like it's stuffed with Spanish moss. So you can actually see it's like stuffed. This will die off because you're not going to be able to water that effectively. You do not want to mist this arrangement. It's going to rot everything out. And then what happens is that moss is going to die back, and then it's going to actually end up retaining too much water in the soil. And then terrarium plants. So sometimes you might find these terrariums where they have succulents in there. So this doesn't end up working. So one, there's a cryptanthus in here, which is that pink striped type of plant. And those are epiphytic, they're a bromeliad. They might actually do okay in this if it's not kept super humid. But if it's not kept super humid, the moss might start to die. So you have to keep that in mind. But then there appears to be what looks like an echeveria. It's not going to do very well in this terrarium. It will start to rot. It does not want that excess moisture right up against its leaves, or to stay in such a humid environment. So it might be okay at first, and then it will start to rot away. So just keep those in mind when you're purchasing these terrariums. So they're, and of course there's different terrariums. There's some that are open and some that are closed. If it's open, that's much more air circulation. It does hold some more humidity though, especially if it's glass and it has no holes in it. Um, but at least it's not as humid as one that's completely enclosed. So sometimes some succulents will do okay if it's in an open terrarium. They're fine. But then moss might not do well though. So if your home is very warm, or very dry, the moss might start to die while the succulents in there are pretty happy. So it's this arrangement in particular, somebody's not going to be happy. And then there's color manipulation. So just be aware that, sometimes these plants, they're being exposed to certain types of light. In this case, for the philodendron, the pink Congo, these were actually given, different types of chemicals that were causing them to grow without chlorophyll, basically. So it was encouraging this type of beautiful pink growth. But then once you bring it home, what ends up happening is now you're not giving it a steady supply of those chemicals, and it starts to turn green. I mean, the plant is absolutely gorgeous, but it will turn that dark green. It's not going to stay pink. And so you will start seeing the new growth coming in green, and then those pink leaves will start to darken and become green. And so folks were paying $150, $100 for these plants, only to find out that they revert once they're no longer given this chemical. And so now sellers that do sell this plant do have to put a warning that the color is not long lasting. You can kind of enjoy it for a little while and then it will turn green. But they have to disclose that now because so many folks, it caused a whole uproar. If you were into the plants, this was happening like pre-COVID. So if you were into plants before, you probably heard about this whole controversy. And it was this induced color. There's also photo manipulation. And so this is a big scam that I definitely want you all to be aware of, where especially like on Marketplace, on eBay, on sites like Wish and Temu, where these sites where you can purchase things, much more cheaply. There's so many of these complete outright scams, where they're trying to sell you like rainbow colored plants, or telling you that you can buy fruit that will be blue or things like that. These are not real. Also things like bonsai seeds, where they're telling you you can grow a bonsai from those seeds. That's not how bonsais grow. You actually have to, bonsai is an art form. You're kind of miniaturizing the plant. You're cutting it, you're manipulating it so that it stays small and compact. A bonsai doesn't just grow, right? You have to, like, anything could technically be bonsai'd. So it's not something you can grow from seed. So you see these seeds like grow bonsai, and that's not how it works. If you're purposely looking for, let's say, pine seeds, or spruce seeds, because you want to start it from a seed and then proceed to bonsai, actually practice bonsai, that's different. But yeah, it's not going to just grow out of a seed for you, unfortunately. But with these photo manipulation ones, it's very easy to kind of figure it out. I did want to point out that, there aren't really rainbow plants in the wild. You might see some rainbow kind of colored fruit that look very close to rainbow, like porcelain berry, which is a big invasive that has spread. It's all over here in New York City. I know for definitely. So I know it's on the East Coast. And sassafras, when the fruit is ripening, it really does give it this kind of rainbow colored look. So these are real, but overall, you're not going to find rainbow colored tomatoes or cherries or things like that. That's not how it works. And then, even these flowers that you see that are rainbow bouquets, these flowers are artificially colored. So they're given water, or sometimes like orchids, they're actually injected with dyes that will change the color of the petals. So just be aware of that. But if you're unsure, if you're looking at a listing and you're like, is that real? Is that too good to be true? It might be. But one way is to take a screenshot or download the photo and then put it into Google reverse image search. This will just protect you from so many scams. So just look for the photo. And so here you see 400 pieces. So they're saying these seeds, right, of a rare blue cherry tomato bonsai plant. That title is no, that's not happening. And here it's saying it's $11.45. Absolutely no. That is a lie. That is not what it is. And if you do a Google reverse search, I actually found here the original picture of these cherry tomatoes. And you can see that the photo was clearly manipulated. So don't fall for that. Google reverse image search helps in so many ways. And in terms of color manipulation, there's also plants that are spray painted, or they're dipped. So basically there's like paint and then the plant is turned upside down and dipped in that paint. And sometimes you'll see that the rocks or that dirt that's on the base is also covered in paint. So that's usually means that it's been dipped. But yeah, this happens. So this is something that I'm seeing more and more in big box stores. I believe in Home Depot, they call them cosmic plants. And I've seen aloes, haworthias, gasterias, those are the most common species that I've seen that are being spray painted. And so what's really sad about this though is this is technically suffocating the plant. And while they do have a lot of energy reserves as a succulent, they might start to push out growth, and that's going to be green, more than likely green. And then folks are like, wait, why is my pink plant turning green? Not realizing that it's actually covered in paint. And so some folks are say that, well, the paint that they might be using is non-toxic, but it still can stuck up the stomata, which are the pores in the plant. And this is something you might see with glitter on plants too, closer to the holidays. So you might see plants being kind of not only colored, but also being covered in glitter. And glitter is very abrasive. If you've ever accidentally gotten glitter on you, some folks are sensitive enough that it kind of gets really itchy. Your skin can get really irritated because it has sharp edges. And this can be happening to the plant as well. It's causing irritation, wounds to the plant. It's also covering up their pores so they can't expel water, they can't take in carbon dioxide or also expel oxygen as effectively. It also affects their ability to photosynthesize. So it's not good. And unfortunately, at this time, while folks are starting to say that there's like biodegradable glitters, there are some glitters that are kind of like rock based, like mica or things like that, but they're technically not poisoning the environment, but they're not going to necessarily break down. So we don't have that. And then usually once they're covered in glitter, they're kind of sprayed with like a sealant to kind of hold the glitter on them. And also it can be very, very deadly to the plant. There's also chalk. I've been seeing this much more often. I've been seeing dracaenas, like snake plants, and aloes being sold with chalk. And there's like signs encouraging people to draw on the plants. I don't know why. But this has I've been seeing this. I saw whale fins, for instance, whale fin snake plants being sold with chalk so that it was encouraging kids to cover them in chalk. um the chalk necessarily isn't as toxic as maybe other things, depending on what, what it's being made with, but it's more so the force that maybe a child would kind of like mark up the plant, that could end up causing this damage to the surface. So yeah, you wanna stay away from that. I've This is also something I've seen, and it was really sad to see. Uh, but with folks selling different types of like a puntia, or just different, like I saw this with agave, where they're being punched, so with like they're or carved with a heart shape or like happy faces. It's really sad. And of course the plant might still survive, but this is just, um it's unnecessary. It's causing damage to the plant. It can inflict wounds on the plant. I mean, you're inflicting wounds on the plant, so it can invite different pathogens. So I just wouldn't recommend doing that. Also, this is Clusia. I think it's Clusia rosea, also called the autograph plant, because you can write on it. So people found that they could write on it and the leaf will stay on the plant. It won't like fall off. It'll stay for a while. But the problem is that you're again inflicting a wound onto the plant. So you could end up getting mold, or this could invite like certain types of pests, or a bacterial infection. And so this plant specifically, the Clusia, is known for this because people will write messages, and I've seen them, people create designs on them. But again, it's just unnecessary. I don't, personally, I don't get it. um, you could do that on anything else, but it's just horrible. And I'm forgetting which botanical garden it was, but Brian and I went to a botanical garden. I know it was down south. Um, and there was this huge agave. I mean, it's one of the biggest agaves I've ever seen in person, and it was covered in writing. So over the years, people had just etched their names, like blank was here, and with dates and things like that. And it was so sad to see this beautiful plant completely covered in writing, completely covered in writing. Yeah. I didn't find that appealing for me personally. Also something that you should kind of watch out for, because I've also seen this on the rise, is shops offering to repot your plant immediately. So they're telling you to, oh, bring your plant to the register and we'll repot it for you. And so that you can buy a pot while you're there, and they switch it out of its nursery pot and put it into a new pot. This is wrong for a couple of reasons. Usually the plant hasn't even had time to acclimate to the store, and now you're going to bring it home, and so it's going to have to reacclimate. Very stressful time for the plant. So this isn't the best time to be repotting it. Now, if it's something as simple where it's pretty, the soil is pretty compacted, unfortunately, that might end up working in your favor, because it's just there's no dirt or anything. The roots, it's just literally changing a vessel. But then the problem is that when they're actively removing it, and you can end up bringing a plant home that's just going to go into shock. It's just not going to work. I have also witnessed folks getting like a glazed ceramic pot at a shop, and where they're offering that, and then they're getting a plant that would not fare well in that type of material. It would want a much more breathable material, something like terracotta. Something's going to wick the moisture away from the soil, is going to add, allow for more gas exchange, versus something like glass or ceramic that traps moisture in. And they were putting a succulent that would not enjoy that into that type of pot. So I understand they need to, the shops need to make money and they want to sell those pots. But just be wary if you're partaking in that service that this it's I think it's much better to just take the nursery pot and put it into a show pot, like a display pot, also called a cash bow. It's just much better to do that than to risk really stressing the plant out more than it already is, because it probably got to the store fairly recently. It's just settling in. You're going to bring it home, it has to resettle in. And you want to set it up for success and not have it drop on you. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was seeds. So as I mentioned with those bonsai tomato blue cherry tomato seeds, right? So sometimes you're wanting to get seeds and you're not going to find the real seeds that you want. Hold on one second. I'm not sure why it went back. Hold on. Let me stop the share so that I can fast forward there to the correct slide, because for some reason it went, there we go. Let me go back to share screen. There we go. That was odd. Sorry about that. So here, when folks are trying to buy Monstera seeds, so lots of folks were growing grass. So this is a very prevalent scam, is the true seeds. You can see what they look like. They're much more rounded. They kind of look like a really chubby pumpkin seed, or like it looks very, very different than what these grass seeds look like. So don't fall for that. Always, see if there's a picture of the seed. If the seller could send you more pictures, that also really helps, so that you're not getting something wrong. Then for lithops have grown in popularity in recent years. They get some really gorgeous colors, so folks really like growing them. They are very slow growing, so be aware of that. But the true seeds are super tiny. They're like poppy seed size, like they're super, super tiny. But folks ended up getting mustard seeds as well as clover seeds. These are much bigger. These are the wrong type of seed. So if you receive these seeds that look much bigger, definitely not lithop seeds. And they're also a little bit pricier. So if you're getting something super cheap, like $1 for 100 seeds, that's not real. That's not, unfortunately. And this happens a lot with trees, especially with Japanese maple. So this is actually Brian's favorite type of tree. But the true seeds are enclosed in these what are called chimeras, these kind of wing-like uh, seed pods. But they sometimes they're removed and it's just the seeds, but they're again much more round. And they have like a burgundy color to them. And these over here are mustard seeds. They're perfectly round and yellow, wrong seeds. So again, beware of the price, because if it's too good to be true, it most likely is. And I see this also happening with orchid seeds. So orchids are really hard to start from seed. You're probably going to need help from a professional, maybe in a greenhouse. A lot of orchids actually need to have, they're so small that they need to have a symbiotic relationship with a mushroom, with like mycelium, in order to be able to germinate. And if they don't have that relationship, sometimes they won't be successful. Now, this technique has evolved, and there are ways now to germinate these seeds without the need for that symbiotic relationship. But again, it's not something that's super easy. So if you're seeing these kind of ads, right, for these Phalaenopsis seeds, for instance, this is a moth orchid, and you're getting these kind of bigger seeds, that's wrong right off the bat. And so what you're looking at are aster seeds. They have them just to show they're a lot bigger, versus orchid seeds where a pod could have like a million seeds. So these are super, super tiny. They're even smaller than like the poppy seeds. So very, very small. And that tends to be the size for orchid seeds. So you're not going to get a bigger seed. So if you get something like that, and again, it's the size doesn't work. Yeah, it's you should, it's more so go to the specialty sellers. Um, you know. And so I just wanted to end it on so how to spot a scam. How do you know what's going on? So sometimes a lot of scammers will use the same picture on multiple listings, or they'll steal pictures from an actual legitimate listing and use it for their own. Um, Again, use that reverse Google search. It really will help with all these issues, especially if the color is being altered. So if it looks unrealistic, kind of weird, like purples, especially purples, blues, and rainbows. Those tend to be the most common. Like I've seen folks trying to sell blue Japanese maples and things like that. Sometimes if the picture of the plant is doesn't match the actual plant. So if it's telling you tomato seeds and then it's showing you a cactus, I've seen this happen a lot too. So be aware of that. Or you have very different species on the same listing. So from the multiple pictures as you're combing through, they're obviously very different species. It's not even the same plant. That's a red flag right there. Then if there's no scientific name or there's multiple names listed on the title. So as we saw with that, it was like 400 pieces, rare, what did it say? Rare blue cherry tomato bonsai. No, no, that's a big hint right there. Also lack of care instructions or germination protocols. So there's no information in the listing, and if you were to contact the seller, they're not forthcoming. If a seller was truly selling, they were growing these plants themselves, they would have no problem sending you pictures. They would have no problem telling you how to grow these plants, because of course they want you to be successful. That's why they're selling the plant seeds. They want you to be able to grow them. And if you're noticing that, you know, the responses you're getting aren't don't make sense, or you can also always copy and paste those instructions into Google and see if they copy and pasted it. Be mindful of that. Also, international shipping. So usually seeds and plants, if you don't have like a phytosanitary certificate, you're not supposed to be engaging in international shipping. And sometimes you might order something and you might be completely unaware that it's being shipped internationally to you, and that can cause problems. So that happened to me. I ordered an $8 Euphorbia millii from eBay. Nowhere in the listing did it say that it was international. And many weeks later, it arrived dead. It was just baked. It was during the summer several years ago. And it had been like, I don't know, by that point, 4 or 5 weeks in transit. Um, and it turned out that it came from Indonesia. And I had a fish and wildlife agent show up to the house. And I had to show them that, oh no, like I had pictures. It had been, it died. It was crispy. There was nothing left of the plant. It was not viable, so I had thrown it out. But yeah, like they would have confiscated it. And you're, yeah, definitely you could even get a fine and things like that. Thankfully, I showed the listing. uh it was just a weird thing. And then, in terms of pricing, so I found out about this really cool site called, I think it's the Root Price. Hold on, let me just double check because I took a screenshot. um Yeah. So I think it's called the root price. And it's really great because it shows you the trends. Let me stop the share real quick. But it shows you, oh, there we go. It shows you the trends. Oh, the glare. Here we go. Of the plant and how the price has dropped or gone up, so that you know what a realistic price is for that plant, so that you're not spending too much on the plant. And if it's suspiciously low, then you know. Also investigating plant pricing. I'm sorry, the keywords to potentially search. So these are all things that, you know, if it looks weird, like rare, bargain, bonsai, mixed lot, these tend to be keywords that indicate that that's not the plant or seeds that you're getting. And so I wanted to show you as an example. Here you're seeing 10 to 13 seeds for $9. And you're seeing the picture here of what the seeds look like. This looks much more like a realistic listing versus here where it says palm tree turtle leaves monstera variegated seeds rare tree mixed color, and it's saying that it's only for $4.49. It's absolutely not that is not true. So you can't get these variegated monsteras from seed, unfortunately. If you buy a bunch of monstera seeds, maybe you'll have a few that pop up with a mutation, but this is not something where you would know for a fact when you're ordering them that you're going to get something with a mutation. So a lot of folks bought into that, thinking that they could purchase albo seeds or Thai seeds, and then they would just get a bunch of green monsteras. so no. Here's an example also with rare indoor flower mini cactus seeds. These photos have all been manipulated. No, there are, of course, some echiverias and certain succulents that might have a purple look to them, or pink, or different shades of green, or almost like a blue. But no, 99 cents, that's just not true. And then here, 100 seeds for $1. This just isn't true. So it's just an outright lie. So I just wanted to share that with you because so many folks are buying plants right now, and there's just so many scams going on. So I wanted to share some of that with you. But yeah, next week we'll have like a little Q&A. So it'll just be questions. So feel free to yeah, have a bunch of questions. I did set up that listing for Plant Swap. So if anybody wants to share any cuttings or anything like that, so feel free to check that out. It is on Facebook, but here is the QR code if you want to access that. Also, if you're interested in offering a tip, if you like the classes, please let me know, and you're always welcome to give a contribution if you'd like. I'm keeping the classes free, but it's always appreciated. And let me see, why does it keep doing this? I don't know why it's decided that it wants to go back to the beginning of the presentation. Here we go. So let me put it back. Bum, bum, bum. And there. And the Patreon is live. I'm actually going to be adding a bunch of new levels to it, especially because I'm going to be doing this work with the NYBG. So really excited. There's some things in the works. I'm contacting folks for interviews, and I'm going to be setting up my tours. So I'll be getting to do tours of greenhouses that are not open to the public. And so I'm going to be doing these, and I'll be putting them on Patreon. I'll also be putting them also for students that are in on Facebook as well. So super excited. There's going to be a lot of really cool content coming. So I'm excited to bring that to you. Also, here is the Amazon shopping list for folks that might want that. These aren't affiliate links or anything. It's just I've put together a bunch of items that I've personally purchased. And so you can feel free to check that out. See if you see anything you might like, grow lights, pots, different tools that I've gotten. I've been adding them to that list. And yeah, let me see. Why did it? That was weird. I don't know why it keeps hopping to the back, but basically it was just to let you know about my the last slide is just urbangarden.eco on the website and on Instagram. So yeah, so you can go ahead and reach out if you'd like. Gabby, LOL the plants. I just saw the comments now because during the presentation I can't see the chat. But Gabby says the plants in front of their tombstones. Yes, I thought that would be fun. So yeah. Oh yes. So Judy says I bought a moon cactus several years ago. The scion eventually died, but the rootstock is still living and has shot out tendrils and looks so weird. Yes. So this is something that can happen. So let me grab this guy. So if the rootstock dies, the scion will die. But sometimes the scion will die and the rootstock will live. And if the rootstock is happy, the scion can die. It can shrivel up and you can eventually just pop it right off. And then the bottom part will continue to live. So it might put out like little tendrils. It might put out arms. So a lot of these tend to be dragon fruit, which grow kind of odd like an octopus. So yeah, you can totally keep the rootstock if it survives. Oh yeah, that you can keep for several years. But just together, like this setup right here with the scion and the rootstock, that doesn't necessarily survive for a really long time. Something is going to happen. Either the scion's going to die and this is going to survive, or this dies and then this dies. Yeah. So unfortunately. Ava asks, do I need to remove the flower drippings from a Hoya plant? So if your flower, if it have the nectar, you mean? I wouldn't remove the flowers. I mean, it can attract mealybugs, that's one. But I wouldn't mess with the flowers because if you break off the peduncle, so basically, I'm gonna try to do this. So there's like a little attachment. So you have your stem, and then there's a peduncle, and then here's your flowers. Like they're kind of hanging like this, right? And so these are your flowers. If you actually break this off, you're not going to get flowers again from that spot. So if you're going to remove the flowers themselves, I would say to just cut the pedicels, which is what's exactly connected to the flower. But that might shrivel up and break off naturally. Just don't mess with the peduncle because that's where your flowers are going to continue to come out of. So yeah. Deanna, you mentioned injecting an orchid. Does this in any way harm the plant? Not necessarily. Doesn't necessarily harm them. But it just adds color to them. But then once the plant continues to grow, so if you get new flowers from your orchid, it's going to be like a white or a cream. It's a very light color, sometimes even a light pink. Depending on the color that they added to it. So sometimes the light pink ones, they'll make like hot pink or red. And then like the blues and greens tend to be like pale yellows or creams or whites because they take that color really easily. But yeah, it doesn't necessarily harm them, but it does alter how they look. and then people buy them, and then when the new flowers come in, they're not that color anymore, and people are like, what happened? And yeah.
Great.
So
Okay. Thank you.
yeah, of course. um oh sure, yes, I will post up, let me put the links um that I just posted. One second. Let me see here. Why Canva? I was just raving about you, Canva. And it decided. There we go. So let me share that so that you can get your screenshots. One second. So there we go. So this is for the plant swap connection. So if folks want to, this is going to be for within the states. Of course, if you are in a different country, there is the option to put the country. So maybe if folks are in a different country, they're able to swap with one another. So there's that. And then, oh, come on, Canva. You were doing so well, Canva. let me share it just like, here we go. Where did that go? So if I go to share, there we go. Oh, I can hear Tilly. I don't know if can you hear Tilly? She's our new parrotlet. Well, she's named after Talansia, but I call her Tilly. Yeah, and she's just going on. Here we go. So this is for the garden swap. And then this is for Venmo. And this one is for Patreon. It's giving everyone one more second to screenshot. And then the Amazon shopping list. So if you want to screen grab that, so you can access that. And this was the last slide, which was info@urbangarden.eco is my email. And then Instagram and the website is also urbangarden.eco. So you can find me on there. But yeah, I hope that was helpful. Oh, thanks so much, everyone. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I hope it was informative. It's always fun, seriously. I can't say it enough, just to start off Mondays like this. It really is a lot of fun. So I truly, truly appreciate everyone hopping on, tuning in. So I'm so glad. I'm so glad to hear that you really enjoyed it. So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your Monday, the rest of your week. I can't believe we're about to go into August. Jeez,
Yeah. Tomorrow.
it was fast. That was
Yeah.
really fast.
Yeah. We'll need to just survive the heat now. Maybe
Yes,
just a couple more months. I know in Florida it could go like till October.
yeah,
So we're just like in the middle of it.
yeah. I actually saw that there's a bunch of cacti that are in, like, I think it was in Texas? That the cacti that, I mean, evolutionarily, right? They survive. They're meant to survive intense bouts of heat and direct sunlight. And it's the saguaro cactus. And they're literally burning. They're
Mhm.
burning, and they're just, it's crazy. So, whew. And oh no, and Synth saying that we may have snow in September, can be a hard freeze. Geez. So
Wow.
we'll see how the weather is going to pan out. I'm definitely nervous about it. It's It's very different. It's very, very different. But stay safe, everyone. And for those of you, in hot places right now, stay cool, please. So, but have a safe one,
Okay,
everyone. Bye for now.
bye.
Bye.